the location perfect, even a competitive salary. But if there's not a connection, it's probably best to move on. A connection is important. In fact, connection is so important. Maybe a different way to phrase it is this. All of us want to be seen, all of us want to be recognized, and all of us want to be known. It's one of the reasons that we did the known initiative and why we chose that word. I remember MySpace. Do you all remember MySpace? Come on, millennials. Where are you at? Okay, let's just be honest. At this point, some millennials are like, oh, I'm so old. Not as old as some, okay? But I remember MySpace, and you were so cool if you had like a really neat background. And what I miss about MySpace, looking at you, Facebook, is like you could have a song that just encapsulated who you were. So when you looked at my profile, you'd have NSYNC. Just kidding. It was more like Garth Brooks playing in the background. Thank you so much. Some of the younger people are like, who is Garth Brooks? Don't talk to me, okay? But do you remember the evolution of social media? Then comes Facebook, or then comes Instagram, and then comes Vine, TikTok, Snapchat. You got all of those. There's more I didn't even mention, and there's going to be many more to come. This is like every parent's worst nightmare, because like, what social media is going to come out this week that I have to now monitor with my children? But it branched over into the dating arena. I mean, Tinder, eHarmony, OkCupid, Farmers Only. You laugh. But as I was preparing this message, I stumbled across an article that I had to share with our church. It was labeled the top 10 weirdest dating apps. I have only 7 because the other 3, I'm like, there's no way I'm telling those at church, okay? So, for your enjoyment, for all my bearded people out there and the women who want to date them, I give you Bristler. Bristler, you're welcome. For those of you watching online, you're like, I am going to sign up right now. I promise you, I'm not paid by any of these either, okay? Definitely not. But don't worry, I wouldn't leave you bacon lovers out there. You know how annoying it is when you are with somebody that, thankfully, Sarah and I like the same kind of bacon, crunchy, like not too crunchy. Some put it in the oven. That's just weird if you do that. But anyway, if you're wanting to bond over bacon, I give you Sizzle. So it actually pairs you with people who like bacon the same way that you like bacon. But don't worry, guys. I know that bacon might not be your thing. If so, you need Jesus. But there's also this one. This one is as weird as it sounds. I mean, did I hear an awe? Come on. This could go wrong in so many ways. What if you show up with your Chihuahua and they've got a St. Bernard? Like, come on. Come on. This one was genius. Every sci-fi person wants someone they can talk sci-fi with, right? Some of you saw this one. This one was just genius too. Okay, like, how annoying is it to, like, every person who has a food allergy knows how hard it is to have all those restrictions, at least gluten intolerant people do. Now you can fall in love while not having to explain your allergy to them, okay? This next one I didn't want to put in there, but I did. Now listen, just listen, okay? I promise, okay? There's a growing number of people who want to marry rich so they can stay at home, men and women, with the kids. It's fine, but now you don't have to like take a gamble. You know they're loaded before you go on the first date, okay? Now the next one I didn't want to put in there because I know that I'm going to get made fun of. Okay. Now, obviously, in my single days, I would have never had to use this. It would have, for sure, been a catfish situation. But for those of you who are tall, I don't understand this because I'm not, but you have to break your back to bend down, to hug people. And if you're tired of dating people who always ask you to reach things on the top shelf, now you can date someone who can reach it themselves, okay? There you go, for your enjoyment, okay? I did not think I would get an applause on that one. I thought I would get a request for a resignation. Now, all joking aside, why do these things exist? Why do Why do these kinds of things exist? These real things exist. It's because all of us want to be connected to other people. We seek connection. Whether it's for romantic purposes or friend purposes or church purposes, we all seek connection. We all want to be seen. We all want to be known. We all want to be recognized by somebody. But is this the connection you really want? Is this really the real you? Sure, we can be connected to people, but is it really the real you that you're connecting to other people with? Do you know what the biggest issue is with all of these social media platforms, whether for dating or social media? Do you know what one of the biggest issues is that's with our relationship, with face-to-face relationships? In fact, this is coming into all relationships, and as soon as I say it, you're going to know that this obviously applies to you, it applies to me. But what's the biggest issue facing our human interaction, online or not? It's filters. We all project something out there that sometimes doesn't exactly line up with who we really are. We all put filters out there. Now, for the social media space, you use filters for certain reasons. You will take a photo and you'll put a nice little filter on it, make yourself look maybe better than you really do. I don't know, but you'll put it out there and then you'll write something on there that is maybe a projection of how you wish your life was. You'll leave out all the ugly stuff, or you're the reverse. You put only the negative stuff out there, but it's a filter. It's not really the real you. And what we can do now with AI is you can actually put yourself, you can take your photo and you can be anywhere you want to be. You could be anyone you want to be. It's a filter. You know, my boy Brad Paisley, he writes a song about being so much cooler online. And it's true. It's true. We can just be that way. All of us have a front. That's another word for it. A front that we put out there for people to see. But we all want to be known. We all want to be seen. We all want to be recognized. But we place an enormous amount of time and energy and sometimes even money making ourselves appear different than we really are, to where it's almost impossible to know the real you. And some of you are worried if people knew the real you, if they'd even accept you anyways. You know who does this often? Married people do this all the time. Okay? How many of you, when you got married, you were really surprised by an annoying habit that just came out one day? Oh, I saw hands go up. Whoa. How many of you were surprised by something you never thought? You're like, where was that during marriage prep? And then some of you are like, what's marriage prep? Okay, let me just give a little plug for this, all right? If you're single and you're ready to mingle, okay, don't use the ones I put up there, please. But if you would like to get married someday and you want me to do your wedding, I'd be happy to do that, but we're going to do marriage prep. Because do you know how important it is to get your filters out there before you step into the arena of marriage? Because then you can work through them together. It's so, so important. But this other one, I think, is even more pervasive in our culture. It's passive aggressiveness. Do you know that's a filter that we put on? It's so easy. In fact, I think, I might be alone in this, I don't think that I am, but I think we live in the most passive aggressive time in the history of the world, because never before have you been able to sit at a table with somebody at a kid's birthday party and smile, be in the same room, breathe the same air as them, and then go home and blast them on social media. Never been able to do that. Or you'll be at a place, you'll be wherever, and you can talk about it in a negative way or repost something online when you get home. Never before have we been in a culture that we can do that. In fact, your kids are being raised in that culture. They never know a difference. They have that opportunity. This last group, what about church people? Sometimes we place a huge filter when we come into this place. And you know this, I do this, but we're like, of course I'm okay, man. I'm at church. It's fine. But the addiction's still there. Marriage trouble's still there. The anxiety's still there. But, we want to be accepted, so we don't really talk about it. We could go on and on. You get the point. We could go on and on. But do you know who else did this? There's actually a guy, and I want to talk about him today, that did this, that actually followed Jesus, and his name was Peter. His name used to be Simon, actually. Jesus actually gave him a name change, a new identity. But Peter had a lot of filters. And I want to talk about them. But before I do, I want to just ask you again, if I could build a little bit more tension with this. Is it really worth it to remove the filters? Is it really worth it to live with this no filter to where people see the real you? Because what that means, you'll have to be vulnerable. And vulnerability is scary, but, and I hope you'll stick with me, so freeing, as I hope you'll see. So before you make your final judgment on whether or not you want to actually do this unfiltered thing, let's hang out with Peter for a little bit, and then you can make your final judgment. But don't do it until we get there, okay? When the Apostle Peter entered a room, you knew it. Do you have those people, maybe you are this person, that when they enter a room, they have so much confidence, you just know, like you can feel them enter the room. They're just confident. That is how the Apostle Peter is often portrayed. He was a very confident person. In fact, his rabbi, which was who? Jesus, it's the right answer, okay? Jesus, his rabbi, could always count on Peter never to let a question fall on silence. You got those people in your group? Yeah, you ask a question, nanosecond, boom, they've got an answer. And that was the Apostle Peter. He would pick it up. He was the first one to raise his hand and to offer a helpful word. Do you guys have people like that in your life? Always has a helpful word? Peter was what I like to call an EGR person. You know what that means? Extra grace required. Okay? That they're the people that when you come up, your blood pressure is probably going to go up a little bit, and you just know you're going to have to pray for an extra dose of grace in your interaction with that person. I think Peter was an EGR person for Jesus, hands down. When I read about the Apostle Peter, I see Jesus constantly trying to rein in his very, very high D personality. He was a driven, high D personality, and I see Jesus just trying to rein him in all of the time. Like he was a strong leader, but not really an emotionally intelligent leader at first. In fact, he reminds me of an old boss that a friend of mine had. A friend of mine worked for this really large tech firm. He was an engineer, and there was a group of engineers working on this special project. And they got this new boss. Maybe you've had a boss like this. They got this new boss. And he was with them maybe a couple of weeks. And he calls this meeting with this group of engineers. And he goes and he brings in like a obnoxiously large whiteboard, okay? And he sets it down and he writes the word effort on it. And then he circles it. And then he points and goes, "This is what's missing from all of you." Could you imagine? I know. And then he proceeded to go through every single one of these engineers and tell them like how all of their areas they were working on, he did not see effort in them. And it really damaged it. My friend told me that relationship didn't get better till he left 2 years later. Okay, it ruined it right away, and it was really hard to get it back. Well, Peter was quick to jump the gun like that. Peter just would charge in head first. But Jesus had a plan for the Apostle Peter. Big plan. In fact, Jesus takes them, you might remember the scene, he takes them to this place that represents hell. He's standing there in front of this, and he asks them this question, "Who do people say that I am?" And they all have these different answers. And he goes, "No, who do you say that I am?" And all of them are kind of thinking, and Peter, go figure, right? He says, "Jesus, you are the Son of God. You are the Christ, the one we've been waiting for." And here's what Jesus says to him. "I tell you," because his name was Simon up to this point, he says, "I tell you, you are Peter. And on this rock," he calls him a rock, "I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." But then he tells him something else after this that makes the other apostles really, really jealous. Tells him this, "Peter, I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind here on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose here on earth will be loosed in heaven." This is why it is so important for the Apostle Peter to ditch his filters. It's why it's so important for you to live without filters. That is a huge calling. And over the next several years that they were together, Jesus would work to remove those filters from Peter's lives. But often what we do is we hide behind these things, don't we? Just like the Apostle Peter. Even though we've got this calling, some of you have felt it. You've been baptized. You feel like God's calling you to a direction. But then we live behind these filters still. So what's the issue? Well, Peter, he had this huge issue of constantly living behind these filters. For his, maybe it was a little bit of self-confidence that when it was stripped away, he really didn't have much confidence. But there's this point in the story, and it's just insane, because you see this 10 chapters later. That was Matthew 16. 10 chapters later, in Matthew 26, this unforgettable account happens, and many of you know this. The crowd comes to arrest Jesus. And finally, Peter's filters get the best of him. And he deserts his friend and deserts his Savior. And Jesus actually told him that this would happen. They were sitting at this meal, and he tells Peter, "Truly I tell you, this very night, Peter, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. And he's taken back. So he comes back and says, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the other disciples said the same. And do you know what happened? Every single one of them ran. I really think I know why. I don't think they realized how big the mob would be that came to arrest Jesus. And I don't think they realized how bad it was going to get. And when they saw that mob with all the chains, they saw that mob with the torches, with the swords, they freaked out and they ran. And what I really think happened was their filters that they lived behind. This false sense of confidence that Jesus was trying to get it. That he was trying to say, you can place your trust in me, but I'm giving you the ability to go do this. I think they didn't grasp that. They lived behind a filter. And it prevented them from actually following Jesus when it counted. And I think maybe you might have some filters and I might have some filters that they prevent us from following Jesus when it really counts. But back to Peter, because he did run. But he also ran in the opposite direction when he heard that Jesus was alive again. Do you remember the story? This is in John chapter 21. And I think I know why Peter ran so hard. He gets this report that Jesus is risen. And him and his friend John, they take off in a dead sprint all the way to the tomb. And John must have been like the track athlete because he beats him there. But John is just kind of peering into the empty tomb. He's afraid to go in. He's looking in. And Peter, what does he do? He blasts right through. He goes right in and realizes there's an empty tomb. But I wonder if it was because he just wanted to see the risen Jesus and fall on his knees and go, Jesus, I am sorry. I am sorry that I deserted you. I am sorry that I said I was going to follow you and then I didn't when it really counted. He wanted a chance, I think, to make amends, and Jesus, as he always does, gives him that chance. You go to John, later in John 21, they're fishing, and Jesus appears on the beach, the risen Jesus, and he has breakfast with them. And I almost wonder what Peter's thinking, because he's like, man, I really need to talk to him. This is really awkward. Last time he looked at me, I was denying him. And breakfast is finished. Jesus fixes breakfast for these guys. Breakfast is finished, and he gives Peter that look. And he says, hey, let's go take a walk. I don't know about you, but I've been in trouble too many times that when someone says I need to talk to you, I just freak out, okay? I'm like, this can't be good. And most of the time it's good, but I've had too many times where it wasn't. And I wonder if this is Peter. He had these butterflies in his stomach. And 3 times Jesus asks him a question. Peter, do you love me? And Peter would say, yeah, of course. Peter, do you love me? Yes, I do. No, Peter, do you love me? And by the 3rd time, we're told that Peter was sad that he was asked so many times. I think Peter was thinking Jesus was like slapping him in the face a little bit. You denied me 3 times. No, but there's a reason that Jesus did this. He's trying to get something through to Peter, and it takes him 3 times to get the filter off because there's a word that he uses for love that you all know, and it's agape. In fact, you know this if you were here at Easter. This was our Easter theme. 3 times when he says, do you love me? He uses the word for love. That is not romantic, not erotic. It's nothing like that. It is a type of love that you will literally go to the ends of the earth to die for the person that you say it to. And Jesus can ask him this because he just showed that he's willing to do that for Peter. And he asked Peter, are you willing to do that for me? Some of you have heard this before. Jesus wanted Peter to remove a filter that was keeping him from actually truly following Jesus. And there are filters that you and I have sitting in this room right now with all the excitement that we have these that are preventing us from loving our God and loving other people to the best of our ability. And here's a secret. You cannot do it alone. You have to do it together. Peter can't do this alone. He was alone when he denied Jesus. And now he can fulfill this calling, but he has to be with other people. He has to do it within the context of being with other people. You cannot do this alone today. You cannot follow Jesus alone, and you can't follow Jesus however you want to follow Jesus. I just do it when it's convenient. You have to follow him. Now, I know that may not be the version of faith that you grew up with, but rest assured, that's the version of faith that Jesus is calling you to. A walking with him with other people. We have to follow Jesus together. When you read Peter's story, it's so neat. Because every time after this that you read about Peter, he's with other people. He got the memo, and we need to as well. We've got to do this with other people. Here's what I'll tell those of you who are wanting to live your best life. You can only really live your best life within the context of a relationship with Jesus. Now, I know that there are probably people, I hope there's people that are watching or here that say, I don't follow Jesus, and my life's okay. Then there might be those that say, I follow Jesus, and my life's a wreck. That's why I'm here. Or I don't follow Jesus. That's why I'm here. Wherever you're at, here's what I'll tell you. The stuff that we teach you in here, it can be really helpful, even if you don't decide to follow Jesus. It'll still be helpful. That's good. I'm happy to help in that way, just give you something that's helpful. But I'm going to tell you this. You can get so much more out of it if you choose to follow him, if you choose to walk with Jesus. And the second most important thing that we're going to talk about over the next couple weeks is the best life is the truly unfiltered life. Your best life is where you can be unfiltered with other people. These filtering isn't freeing. It's limiting. In fact, the filters that we place, the front that we put out there, that we think we have to put out there, they deny us intimacy with other people, even the people that we share a home with. They prevent you from truly following Jesus. Do you know what they inhibit? They inhibit real connection. Every time we put a false self out there, and we do this so often, and many of us don't even know that we're doing it. The truth is that you and I need this. We need a place that we can come, that we can actually remove the filter. We can remove the boundary. We need a group of people that we can be with on a regular basis, sitting together, maybe even eating together, where we can share what's going on. We can share life with. And I'm going to tell you that if you're not doing that right now, you're missing out on having that kind of connection. We need a place where we can live truly unfiltered. That's what we need. And next week, I'm actually going to show you exactly how to do that. But you got to come back next week. But for now, can you just dream with me for just a moment? Just imagine if we truly decided at the latter part of this year in 2024, as everybody else is putting on a filter, who to believe in, who to vote for. They're putting on these filters. What if we just went unfiltered and said, you know what, we're just going to follow Jesus, whatever that looks like. Everything we do, every action we take, whether it's at the polls, or it's at home, or it's in private, we will take because we follow him. In fact, let me give you one just real application for a moment. Most of us have social media. Those of you who don't, I really don't know if you're missing out on too much, but those of us who do, what if just this week, and again, I'll show you some more logistics next week, but what if this week we did one thing? What if for the next 7 days, we didn't post anything, if you're a Christian, you didn't post anything that didn't have to do with your faith in Jesus? Just try it. Just try it. It's one of your pastors I'm asking you to. Don't post anything else unless it has something to do with you sharing your faith in Jesus. And remember, when you were lost, he came after you. And now, if you're not a Christian, I have no authority over you whatsoever. I don't. But what if you did try to be a little more positive in the circle of influence that you're a part of, in your family, on your social media, in your workplace? What would happen? What would happen to our world if people just quit putting a false self out there? If we were just real? Our faith is real. We follow a real person who really rose from the dead. And I'm so glad for that. We follow a real Jesus that can provide actual, real healing and comfort to the families of Appalachia High School. It's real. But you've got to be real enough to show it to the world around us. And next week, I'll show you how. And I'll show also you how you can be a part of something like that. But you do have to come back next week. But for now, Father, we ask for healing and comfort for sure for our friends down south. God, there's some in this room that have been affected by things, self-doubt even, anxiety, death, disease, addiction, broken relationships, broken promises. God, we've all been affected by these things, but you are the great physician, and you heal so much more than just the body. Sometimes even the body goes without healing, and you heal the soul. And people who get to that point, they have so much more joy than those whose bodies are even healed. We don't really understand it, God, but we know we don't have to. We can just follow you and trust you. So I ask over the next 7 days, God, that people here, there be a group here at KCC that would take that challenge serious, to maybe not post anything, not talk about anything from any sort of standpoint, except that we follow a risen Jesus. Wonder what would happen. And I hope we find out. God, we look forward to a season where we can connect with one another, and most importantly, connect with you. God, I am thankful for this space because we are connecting with you and with each other. It's in your name we pray. Amen. If there's something today that you need prayer for, we will always have a team to pray with you. And they'll be at one of these sides over here by the slats that are lit up. And I hope you take advantage of that. Don't do this alone. And come next week and we'll show you how not to do it alone.